Adéla wants to be a pop star. You can tell by how hard she's going this early into her solo career. She already knows the importance of branding. She's already started finding her audience so early into her career and making herself stand out in a crowd full of already established pop stars. She didn't start with a safe aesthetic designed to appeal to the general public and didn't need to wait around to rebrand later. She came out knowing exactly the type of audience she wanted. Now, I wouldn't really call myself a fan of her or her music, but I am quite impressed with her branding and knowing the source to becoming a pop star so early on. I do know what she's trying to do and the direction she's trying to go. Makes me wonder why she competed in Dream Academy in the first place to debut in a group. What I think gets lost when people talk about new artists coming out of survival shows is the difference between someone who got famous and someone who got famous with a plan. A lot of people who come off those shows are just kind of floating. They have visibility and they don't quite know what to do with it yet. They make music that sounds like they were told to make it, or they try to appeal to whoever might be watching, and it takes years before you see any real identity form. Adéla is doing something different. She walked out of that process with a clear sense of self before most people knew her name, and she's been executing on that clarity in a way that is genuinely unusual at her stage of career. Whether or not her music is your thing, the construction of what she's doing is hard to pick apart because it's so deliberate and intentional. So let's get into it. Adéla Jergovà was born in November 2003 in Bratislava, Slovakia. Slovakia is not a country with a well-known pipeline to American pop stardom. There is no industry infrastructure, no obvious path, nobody who did it before her that she could point to and say, okay, that's how it's done. She started taking ballet lessons in Moscow when she was 3 years old. Ballet in Eastern Europe is one of the few socially acceptable artistic paths. But she was also watching Hannah Montana at 3 years old, and something about Miley Cyrus playing pretend pop star made her decide she wanted that, with no framework at all for how to get there.
I watched Hannah Montana and it's dubbed over in my language. As a kid, I was like, oh, sick, like this is bitch next door and I get to do that one day.
She started teaching herself English at 8 by watching American TV shows and interviews with American singers, completely fluent by 9.
Then my older brother was like, everything you love, the music, all the shows, everything that you consume is American. In my 8-year-old head, I was like, oh, I can't be American, but I can sound like an American. I kind of always felt like a weird outsider in Slovakia. It's like a very conservative country.
Her parents were supportive. When she was 10, they took her to Miley Cyrus' Bangers tour. When she was 14, they let her move to Vienna to continue her ballet training. Then at 15, she moved to London to study at the English National Ballet School, so she was serious about ballet. But at 16, she walked away from it. She described being fed up with what she called the discipline's creative militarism. At her parents' urging, she tried college. She studied marketing, which she describes with an eye roll as what every artistically inclined person does when they need to have a job. Then in 2021, she read an Olivia Rodrigo cover story in Elle magazine. The article mentioned Rodrigo's vocal coach, Jennifer Dustman, as a secondary source. On a complete impulse, Adéla tracked down Dustman's contact information and started working with her remotely from wherever she was, and it was Dustman who sent her the open audition call for the survival show to debut Dream Academy. She auditioned in secret. She grew up in a culture where ambitious people got cut back down. She talked about what she called Slavic cultural oppression, a legacy of communist era where being openly ambitious makes you a target. So she kept her plans quiet and said nothing until she had something real to show.
Dream, Dream Academy.
Hello, hi, my name is Adéla Jergovà. I'm from Slovakia and I've been performing since I was 3.
The Netflix docuseries Popstar Academy, Katseye, followed dozens of teenage girls who came to Los Angeles to train under Hybe, all competing for a spot in a new international girl group. That's how the world met Adéla. She was eliminated early, after the first challenge, after receiving the fewest fan votes. She later called it the worst year of her life. And what's interesting about that period, looking back at it, is the way she describes what it did to her artistically. She said that training to be part of a group made her lose her essence. She wasn't herself in that environment. She was performing a version of herself that fit what the show needed. When she got eliminated, she went through what she describes as an emo phase, making indie rock music that was, in her own words, not giving. She also said later that when the show started getting attention, it didn't really land with her the way you might expect. It wasn't the real representation of her and she didn't feel like herself. The show chose her outfits, shaped her image, decided how she'd be presented. She said it didn't penetrate her psyche. And it is true when you look at how she was on Dream Academy compared to her current aesthetics. After the elimination, she started making music on her own, self-recording tracks, producing her own videos, trying to get signed without a label behind her. Her debut single, Homewrecked, dropped in September 2024, and she was the first person from the Dream Academy process to go solo. Right off the gate, she made a creative choice that told you a lot about who she is. The song is built around her family's real story, her father's affair and how her mother dealt with it. It's set to a hyperpop instrumental that runs underneath all the emotion with a kind of restlessness. It didn't sound like a debut single from someone trying to be safe. It sounded like someone who had already decided what kind of artist she was going to be. A month later, in October 2024, she released Superscar. Superscar is specifically about the music industry and what it does to female artists. The way the industry takes what it wants from women, squeezes out the product, and doesn't particularly care about the emotional, physical, or mental cost of getting it. What makes the song work as a piece of art is the contrast between the subject matter and the delivery. The beat is fun. It's a genuinely catchy pop song. And then the lyrics are saying something pretty dark about the machinery that makes those pop songs possible.
Superscar came from a place of just like being sick of being like taken advantage of as somebody who's been a performer my entire life, and then like entering the music industry in like a very publicly perceived and voted show and way.
She talked around that time about why she moved away from making what she called down the middle pop. She described herself as naturally kind of abrasive, so she made a Google Doc, wrote down everything she felt defined her as a person, tried to look at herself almost from a third-person perspective, and used that as a reference point every time she walked into a studio. In February 2025, she released Machine Girl, which came with a very interesting origin story. Grimes heard Homewrecked on TikTok and reached out to Adéla directly to collaborate.
Spill the Grimes tea. What's the Grimes tea? How we met? She reached out to me because she liked Homewrecked. And it's quite cool, and she watched the show and she was like, "They did you dirty, I loved you." I was like, "Oh, you're Grimes, this is really cool." And then we started working together, and we've worked on some songs together, and then I showed her this song, Machine Girl, which is out right now and you should go listen to. And she loved the song, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to do something?" And so she helped with the production, and she did some background vocals. And then she also made a cameo in the music video, which was really cool.
Usually, an emerging artist is trying to get into a room with someone established. Grimes came to her. The song that resulted from that is about feeling part human and part product, the way technology and image making in the modern pop industry can start to blur the lines between a person and a brand.
So inspired because honestly, I thought that people are evolved now, and people understand what a reality show looks like, and people understand that that's an edit, and people understand that humans, and especially women, get demonized, manipulated into these combative positions, right? For everybody's entertainment. But that's not the case. People are not that evolved. They take it seriously and they think it was reality. I was just processing it and I was like, you guys are like kind of dumb as hell. One of those things again where it's like taking something shitty and I 100% could have like backtracked and been like, oh, like I'm so sorry, like I would, but the thing is like it didn't happen in real life like that. I have nothing to apologize because I know in real life all of the things that happened, I know that I handled it, giving people as much space as possible to explain themselves, for them to understand how everybody feels. I really have nothing to apologize for. I was with my friend Liam, who's my co-writer. We were really in the thick of it because I wrote this when I was still independent. It was just us literally doing everything. We were just like really in the thick of it. And I just thought it was so funny how people were like telling me, they were like, why are you yelling at Manon? Why are you yelling at her? Like, why didn't you yell at the machine? And I was like, you f***ing dumb. Why are you yelling at me? Why are you not yelling at the machine?
The music video co-starred Sophia Willie and featured Grimes making a cameo. Then, in May 2025, Adéla signed with Capitol Records and Polydor Records. Deathbydevotion dropped in July 2025, produced by Dylan Brady and Zone, and it leans harder into the electronic club sound than anything she had done before. The song is about the destructive side of total devotion, the cycle of giving everything to something or someone and getting nothing back for it. It draws on her background as a ballet dancer, all that discipline and sacrifice, and the way dedication can start to look indistinguishable from self-destruction if nobody's paying attention. She was building towards the EP and she was raising the stakes on the way there. The Provacateur came out on August 22nd, 2025. 7 tracks, hyperpop production throughout, and a cover that announced the whole thing before you pressed play. Adéla, photographed mid-urination on a street in a reference to Sophie Ricketts' Pissing Women photo series. Not provocation for its own sake, but provocation with a clear point of view behind it. The EP addresses industry exploitation, over-sexualization, betrayal, and the pressure women face to perform a marketable version of femininity. She draws on her own family experiences and early career moments, and she mixes satire and direct confession in the same breath. She said she wants to make provoking art that inspires conversation. And then she said she loves looking at the discourse in her comments. That's an artist who is not afraid of pushback. She is inviting it on purpose. Sexonthebeat, the single that dropped with the EP, is built around the idea that the pop industry has always sold sex along with the music, and the song turns that dynamic into both the subject and the aesthetic simultaneously. The music video featured a cameo from Christina Aguilera. The Charlie XCX stylist Chris Horan also reached out directly to help her translate her visual vision. The industry is paying attention. She followed the EP with the Provacatour, her first headline run throughout London, New York, and Los Angeles. Reviews noted she was performing in point while singing. Former professional ballet dancer doing classical technique on stage during an electropop set in a BDSM adjacent outfit. Nobody else is doing that. It's genuinely her own thing. In April 2026, Adéla released KGB, her first new music of the year and the first single from her forthcoming album. The rollout started weeks before the release. She teased it at Paris Fashion Week in March.
Well, we're working on it. There might be some stuff coming out soon. I'm very excited. There's definitely been some confusion about what it's called. It's really interesting what people are saying, but it's none of the things that they're saying.
PR packages went out with the password Big Ra Big Hits. The production team is Blake Slatkin, Dylan Brady from 100 Gex, and The Dare. It premiered on MTV Live, MTVU, and on the Paramount Times Square billboards. The title is a reference to the Soviet-era secret police agency, the organization that monitored citizens and kept people contained. Adéla grew up in Slovakia, carrying the cultural weight of that history, in a country where being openly ambitious made you a target. And now she's taking that symbol of surveillance and control and flipping it. She's not the one being watched. She is the spy. The music video was directed by Rachel Dunkel and filmed at the historic Los Angeles Theater. It opens with Adéla performing ballet, moves into a confrontation with a spy figure, and ends with her as the one in control. Tutus in a military basement, black lipstick, that pink hair. She's pulling all of her history into a single visual and reframing every part of it as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. She ends the video with a statement clarifying that the song is not an endorsement of the Soviet Union or its actions, but an acknowledgement of where she's from, and she reaffirmed her support for the people of Ukraine. What strikes me about Adéla is the specific combination of things she brings that nobody else is combining right now. Classical vocal training, professional ballet technique, a genuinely unusual cultural background, music that is intentionally abrasive. She's also doing something that I think a lot of pop artists are too nervous to do right now, which is being openly polarizing. She said it plainly. She thinks artists are scared of that right now. She thinks the pop girls are some of the bravest artists working, and she wants to be part of bringing that energy back. That's not an empty statement when you look at the actual work. The cover art, the subject matter of the songs, the aesthetic. She's not trying to get everyone. She's trying to get the right people deeply. She once said she doesn't think her country will be proud of her until she's certified the biggest thing in the world. People from cultures that punish ambition say things like that when they have already decided the only acceptable outcome is the impossible one. So, will she become the next big thing in pop? We shall see.